Una broke away from her dance partner and joined me. "Are you having fun?" I asked, handing her the red wine. "Not really. It's more for business than pleasure." "What, dancing with a group of handsome men? It's a good job if you can get it. That older guy in the gray suit is going to want to feel your ass soon." I nodded at the man next to me. "He's been staring at you for about 20 minutes. Come over to this corner for a minute, sufferer, and for God's sake, smile. You're embarrassing me." "I embarrass you? You're one to talk." We stood at one end of the bar where it was quiet. She was smiling at me. People might be watching, so I played along and smiled back. "Listen carefully, Peter. I work in sales. My base salary is good, but my commission is even better. I'm good at what I do, and this year I closed 3 of the company's 7 biggest deals. This party is dedicated to my latest success. At the end of this month, 50% of my commission will go to the bank. The rest will go to my Christmas bonus." "I know all that. And there's something else, you know. That bonus I get will pay for your dream vacation next year. Pacific Coast Highway, Big Sur, Monterey, whale watching. I made enough to even rent a convertible Mustang for 3 weeks. I know that too. This is my reward for being dragged to this boring party, for forcing me to watch my girlfriend flirt with a group of guys while some old pervert undresses you with his eyes. It's annoying." "Well, here's something else you obviously don't know. The managers who signed this week, 2 of them, not a group, have each only had 2 dances with me. That's to be expected. They didn't grope me, touch me inappropriately, or even dance cheek to cheek." "Okay, sorry," I said. "And the older guy watching me, that's the CEO of the company, insists on being called Gavin. Yes, he's watching me, of course. He's a stickler for the firm's moral standards. A hand on my ass for longer than a second, and I'll be taken to his office on Monday and shown a yellow card. God, he even checks our lunch hour. And we're never allowed to go to a business lunch at the hotel just in case we're tempted. So, why don't you take it easy?" "Fair enough, I will. But you do realize it won't stop him from being attracted to you. If I wanted to have the last word, I failed." "Yes, you did. He's gay." We rejoined the crowd. I'm not much of a party person, but made up for my slip by dancing with Una and chatting with the managers and Gavin, and smiling a lot. I may have eaten and drank too much too, but she seemed satisfied. The sex when we got home was great. I don't know if she was horny because she put me in my place or because of the big contract. That didn't bother me either. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Our sex life is pretty tumultuous as it is. We've both been married before. Me and my ex had 2 kids, and then she talked me into getting a vasectomy. A year later, asked for a no-fault divorce. Thank you. She immediately hooked up with an American and moved to San Diego with my sons. I couldn't do anything about it, but at least I had to pay child support. Chuck is rich. This probably influenced my interest in the west coast of the U.S. I've only been able to see my boys once in the last 2 years. Una was previously married to a guy who was insanely jealous and practically kept her under lock and key. Then, during a medical examination, she was diagnosed with a sexual disease. This was reported to her husband, and he admitted to having an affair. He, in turn, told the woman he was having an affair with, and her husband promptly beat up Una's ex. She filed for divorce on the grounds of his cheating, but he died before the case could be heard. There were rumors that the beating was the cause of the stroke, but nothing could be proven. There was no life insurance, just debts, and the whole case made her susceptible to jealousy. That's why I pissed her off at the party. So after we got married, we took over our little rented apartment. The plan was to get back on track financially and get married when we could afford to buy an apartment. Fortunately, Una has no interest in having children. Her bonus and sales figures entitle her to an extra week's vacation next summer when there is a downturn in business. She is more than happy to have my kids join us on our trip down the Pacific Coast Highway. My ex also agrees. The next day, Saturday, Una told me more stories about her boss. He lives discreetly with a male partner. They are not married and never show their affection in public. He often sends clerks to restaurants to check who the sales reps are buying dinner for. And when they have to leave on business, it is believed that he pays various hotel employees to keep track of who is in what room, whether they have visitors, and so on. It wasn't until Sunday morning that I realized I hadn't gone to the bathroom the day before. I usually go pretty regularly, and I suspect my natural rhythms may have been disrupted by something I ate at the party. By Sunday evening, my stomach was hurting. I often stayed late at work. There was a major glitch in the computer system. It took me 6 months to get to the bottom of the problem. The initial error had occurred a year ago and had been building up like a lump. I was in constant communication with our San Francisco branch office, which was working on a parallel system. Hence their growing fascination with their stories of the Pacific Coast Highway, which I had seen in many movies. They were prone to sarcasm because our British system often failed while their system was infallible. But the end of the problem was just around the corner, so I had no choice but to go to work on Monday with a sick stomach. Una and I live in an old terrace house. The rent is low, and it was all we could afford when we first met. The house has a tiny entrance hall from which you can go straight up the stairs to the 2 bedrooms or the living room combined with the kitchen. In between, there is a small bar counter with a huge potted plant on it. We don't get guests very often. A door at the back of the kitchen leads to a not-so-ordinary hallway. It is a square about 1 meter square with doors on all 4 sides. One, of course, leads back into the kitchen. The next one leads to the shelved area where the water heater is. My mom always called it the airing cupboard. Next is the door to the bathroom attached to the back of the house. It looks like something taken for granted and came about in the days when people washed in the kitchen sink and the toilet was at the end of the garden. There is now a small shed standing there in which the old bathtub is still suspended. Finally, at the side of the house is a back door facing the wall between us and the neighboring house. There, on the left-hand side, on your way to the enclosed garden, you pass our bath. When I got home on Monday, I still had a stomachache. But Una hadn't reported that anyone else had been hurt after the party. I gave up lunch and dinner and finally unloaded in the evening. Well, don't you hate those sessions after which you just wipe and wipe? Half a roll of toilet paper later, I was done and did one last flush. Except it didn't feel right because it didn't all go away. I waited and tried again, but the toilet was dangerously full. I thought its murky contents would spill onto the floor. Time to work the plunger. Like most people, I don't like this activity, but I wanted to clean the toilet before Una left. A few vigorous strokes repaired the leak and all was well. There was a shower over the old one, and its head just reached the toilet bowl. A minute of hot water helped me clean the bowl and rinse the plunger. I washed my hands and went and made myself a sandwich. I was starving. On Tuesday, my routine was restored. Shit, shower and shave, as my old grandfather used to say, and my workday was triumphant. We tested the system, and it was finally error-free. All computer functions in all departments of the company began to run faster and faster. My boss, Cliff, was ecstatic and mumbled something inaudible about a bonus. I would have preferred a promotion, of course, and to that end, I had trained an assistant, Eric, while I was at work. Now he was as good as I was at troubleshooting. Well, almost. That night I took Una out to dinner, but I didn't mention my success at work. I thought it was better to wait and see if more money was on the horizon. When we got home, we settled down in front of the TV. "Just in time to poop," she said as the opening credits rolled. Una is one of those people who likes to announce her bodily functions. "Gotta pee" is a pretty standard conversation starter. She came back as the movie started. "Sorry, Pete. The toilet's clogged, and you're the man with the plunger. Would you be a dear and see to it, please?" Sure. I'll go during the first commercial break. But I don't feel comfortable leaving it like this. Oh, please. So I went and did my bathroom duty again. It took several dips with the plunger, 3 flushes, and a quick wash under the shower. Friday morning it clogged again, and I called our landlord from work. "Look, Peter, it's stipulated in your lease, but right now I'm knocked off my feet and won't be able to make it until the end of next week. How would you feel about doing it yourself?" "I'm not going to crawl through the sewers, Len." "You don't have to. I saw what caused it last time. It's not very pleasant, but it's not difficult at all." "Go on." "There's a square inspection hatch behind your back door. It serves your door and the next door. Theirs goes under the dividing wall. Your toilet flushes into a sewer pipe running directly to this entrance. There is a small concrete shelf under the lid at the end of each pipe. That's where the clog usually collects. What's amazing is how close to the surface it is in these old houses. What you're flushing goes a few centimeters under the walkway." "All right, I'll try it. Thanks. Let me know how you're doing. By the way, There is a long metal pole in the closet hidden behind your water heater. It lifts the lid and can also scrape out the clog. Asterisk, 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 work project completed. I got up early for once and found the pole. Standing at the back door, the square hatch came off easily. It revealed exactly what Len had described. To the left of the square opening was a round pipe that went straight into the depths of the sewer. It created a curved shelf above and to the left where the drains from my and my neighbor's apartment went out. One always imagines that the drains and sewer pipes are much lower than they are here. The neighbor's side was clear, but mine had a clog. As disgusting as the sight was, I felt it was my duty to go get my phone and take a couple pictures for posterity. It only took a few scratches, and the crap came out in a hurry. In the bathroom, I flushed the toilet and stepped back out to see it flowing to freedom. Then I filled the bucket with hot water from the shower and added half a bottle of bleach. I washed the pole and wrapped the end of it in a plastic bag. It could stay outside overnight to dry. I poured the rest of the bucket directly into the toilet, flushing out the last of the culprits. I felt like a hero and took a shower. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That same Friday night, we were just finishing dinner when my cell phone rang. Cliff was still at work and panicking. I shoved the last piece of chicken between 2 slices of bread, thinking that's where the Earl of Sandwich started. Then I kissed Una and went back inside. It was daytime in San Francisco, and their system was failing. Eric and a few other guys were on the phone with America. They were telling them the procedure, step by step. Cliff walked me into his office. The problem is exactly the same as the one we just solved here. We? All right, Peter, you and Eric took care of that. What are the consequences of the downtime? How did you solve the problem here? I ran a parallel system so that I could work on the original while the office kept running. It wasn't ideal because I had to take a break from maintenance work to deal with the inevitable office glitches, 8 to 10 times a day, though that dwindled to 2 or 3 as we neared the finish line. Could the Americans fix it faster? We know now what the cause was, don't we? No, I've always known what the cause was. I had to repair everything piece by piece, sort of working backwards. It took 6 months, and I worked a lot of overtime. Then let's cut to the chase, Peter. What's the best way to get America to the point we've just reached? And I mean in-house, no outside contractors. You'll need paper and pen. He's got it. Promote me to manager, with a corresponding increase in salary, plus a reasonable overseas allowance. Send me to San Francisco, and I guarantee I'll repeat what I've accomplished here. But I'm not going to work all hours of the day again. Tell them I'll help them day in and day out, but the full fix will take a year. In that time, I can keep them up and running and troubleshoot things as I go along. I will be counted on to pick my own hours of operation. They can count on a few Friday and Monday lunch breaks, and I still want to take a full vacation. I suspected it might be something like that. What else? I want them to provide me with a car and a 3-bed apartment close to where I work. 2 competent assistants will cut the project down to 9 to 10 months. I can finance your salary increase and travel arrangements, and I'm sure they'll find 2 assistants and provide you with a rental car. But short weeks and 3 bedrooms? They won't like that. You're the boss. You have to tell them this is the way it's supposed to be. It can be done faster if they bring in the experts, but it will cost them, us, a lot more than my proposal. This isn't about me racing up and down the Pacific Coast Highway. This is about spending time with my boys. You'll let me know on Monday how things are going. I don't think I've ever been so determined with Cliff, but I was sure I was going to get what I wanted. I was the center of attention. They could do the job in 2 months if they were willing to throw a lot of money at the problem and tolerate at least a week of downtime. But my demands would cost less. If they can't satisfy me, maybe I'll leave and try my luck elsewhere. Cliff should know about this. When I returned, Una was in a playful mood, but I was not. I deliberately vague told her about the problems at work. She was never interested in technical matters. I put off sex over the weekend, too, citing that I had another stomach ache. Monday morning, she looked particularly sexy. You look very glamorous. Another party? I don't think so. I need another deal. I have 2 guys coming in from Italy. If I pull this off, I'll be the consummate salesman of the year. Rob, this was supposed to be handled by my closest competitor, but I told the CEO I wasn't happy for it to go to him because I know a little Italian. He said he was trying to level the playing field. That doesn't sound very businesslike. It's not a game. That's what I said. Anyway, Poor old Rob sprained his ankle. Gavin called me yesterday, and he doesn't want these guys getting pitched to by someone in a cast. He called the Italians, and they are expecting to be picked up at the airport by his best saleswoman. Good for you. Are they signing the contract today? No. They'll arrive at lunchtime, and I'll bring them to the office to meet Gavin and look at our terms. From there, it's straight to dinner at their hotel. Gavin, of course, will be present, making sure I don't sneak into their room. Then they'll have an early night, and I'll be home until 9. Won't he be watching to make sure you don't go back and visit them? He'll probably have someone at the hotel to keep an eye on them. As for me sneaking back to the hotel, you're the one who'll have to see to it that I stay home. I can do that. I was hoping that didn't mean she'd want sex. I'll have to come up with an excuse. My main meeting is tomorrow at their hotel. Not in their room, of course. Gavin had booked one of their public conference rooms. I'll be speaking on my own. I can buy them lunch and take as much time as they need. And no doubt we'll have someone from the staff watching us, popping in every 10 minutes with coffee and cookies. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll probably go home early while the Italians discuss it. The next day, our American colleagues agreed to whatever I wanted. An apartment and a car, though not a Mustang, had already been arranged. Cliff booked me a plane ticket for Wednesday morning. He also agreed to pay to ship a couple boxes of my personal belongings there. The weather in California was pretty much unchanged. I hoped it would stay that way. Take tomorrow off, Peter. Just call Wednesday before you go to the airport to confirm that everything is going according to plan. What will Una have to say about this? I've made it clear that you'll have to pay all her expenses. She's staying here. She's making too much money to leave. Well, good luck to you. He stood up and we shook hands. I wondered if I'd ever see him again. I was going to spend a year on the edge of Silicon Valley. My skills might come in handy there. I had a feeling Cliff suspected something like that. The rest of the day was spent clearing the table and saying goodbye. I got home early, packed up all my stuff, and sent it on its way. I won't need a suitcase checked in my luggage on Wednesday. A carry-on will suffice. I called Len, confirmed that I had just paid 3 months' rent, and told him it was my notice to leave the house. I wasn't going to miss it. He should contact Una directly to arrange a final checkout. Oh, and I solved the clog problem. Una and I have separate closets, so she didn't notice that evening that I had packed up all my personal belongings. I told her that I had been to the doctor in the afternoon to check out my stomach problems. He did some tests and decided I might have an ulcer. No sex today, baby. The medication he gave me makes me nauseous. If it's an ulcer, it's because of all the overtime work you've been doing. You need to cut back a little bit. Don't worry, I'm going to take things a lot easier from now on. As our American cousins would say, chillin' out. Tuesday morning, Una was dressed up again and squirming with excitement. I hugged her tightly. Go get 'em, baby. Dazzle those Italian stallions with your charm. Thank you. Well, I have to get out early, so good luck. I'll be home around 6 o'clock and you can tell me how it went. I will. Be good. I left, but not for work. I went to see Vic at the used car store. He only gave me $1,000 for the car. I was supposed to make $1,200, but I couldn't. $1,000 would have been better exchanged for dollars. I knew Una would be with the Italians at least until lunchtime, so I looked for a restaurant. There was no point in going to McDonald's or KFC. America is full of them. I settled for an early lunch at Maggie's all-day breakfast. Very English. I got back to the house around noon, stuffed the last of my belongings into a small backpack and stashed it in an empty closet. Our kitchen window overlooked the short walkway to our fenced garden, and I risked opening it slightly. We had a large potted plant on the bar, which I moved to one end to block its view from the living room to the kitchen, where I hoped to hide. I unlocked the back door and put my phone on video, then went back to the front window to observe. Una arrived at 2:30. As she got out of the car, legs in black flashed for a moment. While she unlocked the door, I managed to slip out the back door. I stood on that important metal inspection hatch and peeked out the kitchen window. I heard her cross the tiny hallway a few inches away from me and enter the bathroom. The toilet flushed and I felt the lid vibrate slightly as the water rushed under my feet. She came back in and stood at the window where I had just been. I guessed who she was waiting for. She was no longer wearing pantyhose. The Italians came in and she walked them to the couch. When she entered the kitchen, I pressed myself against the back door. Soon I heard the pop of a wine bottle being opened. "You left through the underground parking garage?" "Yes, that was easy. The elevator went right down there and a cab picked us up from there. Make sure you tell the cabbie to drop you off there when you get back." "I will." She brought them 3 wine glasses on a tray. The men stood up to toast their fruitful relationship and sat down again. Una stood in front of them and they all put down their glasses. "It will be easier if I help you take off your pants, gentlemen." They unbuckled their belts and began to pull them down. This was my moment. I didn't want to sneak in until I was sure they were going to start, when all 3 of them were engrossed in sex. They started, and I quietly opened the back door and crept over to the plant. I pointed my phone around the pot and started snapping pictures. I probably didn't need those early shots of clothes being shed, but I filmed anyway. If I'm discovered, I'll settle for anything incriminating. When they were done, the guys were still lying side by side on the couch in just t-shirts. Una, on the other hand, was completely naked. They had tried every position and every combination. I knew Una was good at it. I'd just never watched it as a spectator before. By this time, they were getting rowdy, so I moved to the other end of the bar and zoomed in. When they had withdrawn, I slipped back out into the garden where I waited against the back wall by the bathroom window. 5 minutes later, I heard her. As soon as I heard the toilet flushed and the shower running, I went back out the back door. Ignoring Una's scattered laundry, I only had time to grab her phone. There in her contacts was the man I needed. He was listed under the name CEO, not Gavin. I called him from mine and convinced his secretary it was urgent. "Is it true you monitor the morals of your employees?" "Who's this?" Peter, partner of your top saleswoman, Una. Ex-partner, actually." "I remember you. Yes, it's true." "Then get ready to receive some video clips I just shot." As soon as he received them, I briefed him on the situation and asked him to listen to the details of the Italian's escape from the hotel. Then briefly explained to him what my special photo from earlier was referring to. "Tell her not to come back tomorrow," he said. "Sorry, buddy, that's your job. You tell her yourself. I would suggest face-to-face in front of her coworkers." I hung up and sent my first nature photo to Una's phone. When I came downstairs with my backpack, she was walking into the living room wrapped in a bath towel. Her jaw dropped. "What are you doing home? And where are you going?" "Shut your mouth, Una. You look like a goldfish. To answer your questions, I came home to get my backpack since I won't be here tonight. I'll spend the night in the same hotel where your Italian friends are staying, but when I get there, I'll use the front door, not through the parking lot." Her mouth opened even more. "But why? What's going on? All the explanation you need is in the picture I just sent to your phone." I looked down at him lying on the couch. "Bye." I walked out the front door one last time, whistling "California, Here I Come." Without a car, of course, I had to walk to the hotel. I never saw any Italians that night. I wondered if Una would show up to meet me, but she was nowhere to be seen. Quite understandable under the circumstances. The next morning I went to the airport. Una was going to have a bad day. Work, bonuses, renting a house. In the cab, I smiled, took another look at the picture I'd sent her. An open inspection manhole and a clog right above the sewer. You could clearly make out a lot of brown paper, and half a dozen used condoms. When I returned home from work, the house was quiet, although there was no reason for it to be noisy, as my wife was not due home for another hour. When I went upstairs to change, the bedroom seemed different, although there was nothing unusual about it. When I left, my wife Anna was vomiting. Half of my colleagues were sick, and it resembled COVID, except that people were not dying. After changing, I went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Anna and I had been taking turns cooking dinner since our youngest son joined the Army 5 months ago. It didn't really work out, as I cooked almost every night, especially in the last month. When I entered the kitchen, I noticed a note on the table. It said in large letters, "I'm sorry." On top of the note were 2 positive pregnancy tests. Since I had had a vasectomy 10 years ago, this could only mean one thing. Anna had been cheating on me. She was over 50, and I thought she was too old to have a baby. In my confused mind, it was the only thing I could think about. Trying to focus on something else, I went upstairs. The bedroom looked different because all her things were gone. The dresser, the wardrobe, the bathroom. Everything was empty. There must be some truth to the saying that men are stupid. She cheated on me, got pregnant, and took all her things without me even noticing. Anna had been very irritable for the last couple of months, maybe longer. I tried to give her space and avoid her random outbursts of anger. I think the first thing I felt was relief. The war was over. No more fights, no more coldness, no more nights in the guest room. The thought of the dream made me wonder if he had slept with her in our bed. I took off the sheets, threw them in the washing machine, sprayed the pillows with disinfectant, and threw them in the dryer. Tomorrow, I had to go shopping, and tonight I had to flip the mattress. I have no other memories of that night. I refused to cry. Why should I cry? She cheated on me, and thank God for that. The next morning, after I called work and said I was sick for the week, other thoughts began to torment me. Would she have told me if she hadn't gotten pregnant? How long had her affair been going on? Was I the second one? These thoughts were pointless. My cell phone rang. It was my lawyer. Bill was my parents' lawyer and our family lawyer for wills and other matters. "Good morning, Jack. Anna called me yesterday and said you were getting a divorce. Is that true?" Anna left 2 positive pregnancy tests on the kitchen table yesterday with a note asking for forgiveness. I had a vasectomy a few years ago, so there's only one conclusion. To be honest, I'm having a hard time processing what happened, and when I came home from work last night, I found the cupboards empty. I understand, Jack. She didn't mention the pregnancy or the reasons. She just laid out her terms for the divorce, which, by the way, are very generous to you. I'm not obligated to represent either of you, even though I've been your family's lawyer for 3 generations. Do this for me, Jack. Give yourself some time, maybe drink it off and come into the office on Friday, and we'll discuss her offer. And Jack, you need to protect yourself financially, close any joint credit cards, and start separating your accounts and everything you have. Also, bring a list of your finances when you come in. Anna's offer was very generous. My pension and 401k retirement plan would remain untouched. She wanted half the value of the house after it was sold, or I could buy her out. Anna would keep the car, which was in her name, and the jewelry she had accumulated over the years. If I agreed, Bill said he could represent both of us and file the papers, and we would be divorced in about 3 months. I agreed. When I got home, my daughter Jenny was sitting on the porch. She had been driving home from school for 3 hours. She was crying and continued to cry as I approached the house. Jenny ran up to me, hugged me, and buried her face in my shoulder. "You could come in, dear. The door code is the same." Mom called me last night and told me what happened. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I've put my hand on the doorknob dozens of times in the last hour, but I couldn't go in." We sat down on the steps again. "Did you know, Dad?" "I don't know anything, sweetheart. I'm a classic clueless husband." This triggered another bout of tears, and I began to wonder whose side she was on, mine or my mother's. "Did you know, Jenny?" "No, not until she called me, and then a bunch of little things fell into place, little things she said during our weekly phone calls that made sense after I hung up. I was so angry with her. What the hell was she thinking?" "Did she explain why?" "No, she said she had an affair and got pregnant. She added that she had started divorce proceedings." "Did she say with whom?" "No, I asked. She said it wouldn't help anyone or anything." We both needed to use the bathroom, and Jenny finally entered the house where she had lived her entire life. I put the coffee on. "Why couldn't you go in, Jenny?" It was our house, Dad, and she ruined it. Something about it has physically changed. It took me a while to figure out what exactly had changed. A few photos are missing, all our wedding photos are gone, a lot of our knickknacks and trinkets from vacations and stuff are gone, and the lithograph we bought on our honeymoon in Bermuda, I guess your mother took them with her. That's strange. Why would she take memories of a marriage she destroyed? Do you know where she went? No. We had a cell phone tracker, but I didn't look. Why? Can I see your phone, Dad? I want to see her face when I ask her why she destroyed our family. Anna disabled the permission on her phone and refused to answer Jenny's calls and messages. She had to go back to school on Sunday. After she left, the house was too quiet. I called a staff meeting for first thing Monday morning, told them I was getting divorced, and asked them to be patient with me over the next few weeks if I was irritable. Bob, the local smart guy, wanted to know about the last 3 years. My administrator hugged me with tears in her eyes. Jessie stayed, which was not surprising. She was my right-hand woman, and I was grooming her to take over when I retired in 5 years or so. "How can I help you, Jack?" she asked. "Nothing to do. The divorce papers are signed and in court, and I'm buying Anna's share of the house, so I don't have to move anywhere. Anna left me in good financial shape." "What happened, Jack? You never gave any indication that you were having problems at home." "I didn't know we had problems until I found a pregnancy test on the kitchen table with a note that said, 'I'm sorry. I had a vasectomy 10 years ago, so I'm not the father. Please don't tell anyone.'" Jessie said okay with tears in her eyes and left my office. My assistant, Cheryl, followed her in with a cup of freshly brewed coffee. I had tried to break her of that habit a few years ago, but gave up. "Jack, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I can recommend a good therapist. Don't try to be tough, because this problem will eat you up like cancer." I took her advice and asked her to make an appointment for me. The psychologist was an older woman about my age. I told her about my divorce, and she asked me what I wanted to get out of counseling. "What scares me," I said, "is that since I read the note, I haven't felt any emotions. The only thing I felt was relief because she had been very volatile over the last few months, and I was trying to hide from her random outbursts of anger." She said, "That's not unusual behavior for a man, Jack. I'm sure this isn't the first time you've been hurt. Maybe it was a girl in school. Men create a protective shield to appear strong. One day that shield will come down, and I want to see you after that." She asked me a bunch of questions about whether I slept or drank, and then she let me go home. Anna disappeared from the face of the earth. Sometimes the children received letters from her in which she first apologized and gave them an email address where they could contact her. The postmarks showed that she lived nearby. She stopped communicating with her parents and siblings. No one knew where she lived or if she had given birth to the child. I was the one who told her family that she was pregnant. Over the next 2 years, Jessie and I grew close. Some might call her my work wife. It was nothing unusual for us to have lunch together. I tried to do that with all my employees, but Jessie and I just had more projects together. Maybe I was fooling myself. No one writes about how lonely it is after a divorce. All those dinners with your spouse, breakfasts, hugs before bed, goodnight kisses. I could go on and on about how it all disappears. Every evening you eat dinner in front of the TV, breakfast is a cup of coffee and small talk about the weather, and the weekends are spent in a daze. I had hobbies. I loved running and working out. What I didn't have was someone to talk to, but Jessie started to fill that void. Most of our conversations were about work. We always talked about our home lives, but after my divorce, I didn't have a home life. Jessie filled that void, mostly talking about what she and her family did on the weekends. Gradually, complaints about her husband Danny began to creep into the conversation. And I started texting her after work, maybe because I was bored out of my mind and couldn't leave work at work. Great ideas would come to me, usually while I was jogging, and I would send them to Jessie. Sometimes these messages would arrive at 8 p.m. or noon on weekends. Sometimes Jessie would respond with a simple, "Okay." But there were other times when we would exchange a whole series of messages discussing my brilliant idea. Everything in this world is slippery. Maybe that's why Anna got pregnant. Our after-work business messages became another opportunity for Jessie to vent her dissatisfaction with her husband. I tried to remain neutral. We all complain about our spouses, and I didn't mind her taking her dissatisfaction out on me. Deep down, I thought her complaints were nothing compared to Anna's pregnancy. On Saturday evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I realized that Jessie and I had exchanged dozens of messages that day. At first, we discussed how to stay within budget for a particular project, and then Jessie complained at length about Danny. He had started drinking more and gained weight, which she believed was causing him to snore. She demanded that he sleep on the couch, and it escalated into a major argument. I sensed that Jessie had been drinking while texting, mainly because of the terrible typos she didn't notice. Sending each other dozens of text messages on weekends or in the evenings became the new normal, and they didn't start with my brilliant ideas, but with Jessie's complaints about Danny. I certainly didn't want to get involved, but I usually felt that Jessie was overreacting. But I could never tell her that. Danny's life reminded me of my last months with Anna. I usually came to the office before everyone else because I hadn't been sleeping well since Anna left. One morning, before I even had a chance to drink my coffee, Jessie burst into my office. She didn't even go into her office first to drop off her things. She was crying and threw herself into my arms when I stood up. It was the first time I had ever touched Jessie. I asked her what had happened. "Danny hacked into my phone last night and ambushed me this morning. He complained not only about how much we texted each other, but also about how I insulted him in my messages. He accused me of having an affair with you and is demanding a divorce. I insisted that you never touched me, and he started talking about some kind of emotional infidelity, whatever that means." At that moment, we heard, "I knew it," from the doorway, and there stood Danny. "Are you still claiming you never touched him, Jessie?" "It was the first time, Danny. Please sit down. Let's talk," I said. "What do you want to talk about? How you're trying to steal my wife because yours got pregnant by her boyfriend." The fact that Jessie had shared this with her husband hurt me more than his look, which said he wanted to hurt me. I tried not to look at Jessie. "I saw all your messages. Not only does she humiliate me in front of me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but she acts like this with her boss? Maybe she doesn't respect me anymore?" "You're right, Danny. It's my fault, and I'm sorry I didn't stop it. I promise it will end now. As her manager, I should have put a stop to this a long time ago." Both Jessie and Danny looked at me with shock on their faces. "Jessie said you want a divorce. Please don't do that." "Yes, my wife got pregnant by someone else. I don't know who, but I know it wasn't me. That doesn't kill me. What kills me is the loneliness that will fill your life after the divorce. Anna and I weren't getting along before she left, but she was still there. Try to imagine eating alone, going to bed alone, and waking up alone in the morning, and that it could be like that forever. Please, try going to a therapist first." Jessie covered her face with her hands and cried, and Danny wasn't as angry as he had been when he came in, but he wasn't done yet. My assistant, Cheryl, came in with coffee and asked if everything was okay, looking at Jessie crying and Danny angry. "I'm working on it, Cheryl. Please cancel all my meetings for today and schedule me in with the boss for an hour, and I need to talk to HR." "I'll take care of it, boss. Who else wants coffee?" "Team boss, who else wants coffee?" Jessie and Danny declined, but I could see that Danny was ready to go on the offensive again. "You promised it would end. How are you going to do it?" "In the long run, as soon as I walk into the boss's office, I'm retiring. I've been thinking about it for a long time. In the short term, I'll never text Jessie after work again. She's supposed to take my place when I retire, so I can't promise we'll never text each other again, but it will be strictly business, and if Jessie ever strays from that, I'll stop immediately, as I should have done long ago." You can't retire, Jack. This is as much my fault as it is yours, Jessie said through her tears. Let that be your first lesson as a new manager. The blame always lies with the manager. Cheryl peeked into the office, still looking very concerned about what was going on. Rich said he could take you and you'd better not threaten him with retirement. I don't know how to play poker, and my face showed that this was exactly why I wanted to see him. Damn it, I just trained you well. She was still yelling as she left. Jessie was still crying and Danny looked confused. I looked at Danny as I stood up. Danny, please hold her. She needs you right now. I almost expected Danny to tell me to get lost, but instead he stood up and hugged Jessie. I was overcome with relief, and I knew tears were streaming down my face when Cheryl rushed over with napkins. My resignation took effect immediately, and there was almost no need for Jessie and me to exchange text messages. Cheryl told me that Jessie and Danny were going to see a counselor and that things seemed to be looking up. Although I had thought a lot about retirement, I had never planned for it. I soon realized that I now had a lot more time to feel lonely, and I tried my best to fill it with running. I was running my usual 20-mile route when I noticed someone else running beside me and realized it was Anna, looking older. Mind if I join you, Jack? Maybe we can grab a coffee after our run? Over coffee, she said. The kids told me you retired. I didn't think you'd ever leave. To be honest, I had a complicated relationship with Jessie. I let her get too close. We were never close and never crossed the line. But we went far enough that her angry husband came to my office. How are you, Anna? I think you'd really like to hear about the baby. I lost it just a couple of weeks after I left. The chances of me carrying it to term were very slim. I'm just glad it happened sooner rather than later. I'm sorry for your loss, Anna. What about the father? She must have known I was going to ask that question or something like it. But I didn't expect that reaction. Tears welled up in her eyes as she grabbed my hand. It was my own mistake, Jack, a consultant who had been working with us on a project for several months. At the wrap party, I let myself get carried away without even thinking about birth control. By the time I realized I was pregnant, he was long gone. I never told him. She squeezed my hand tightly. Jack, I live just around the corner. Would you like to come over? I'll get 2 more cups of coffee. She handed me my coffee, took my arm, and led me to her home. I was surprised at how modestly she lived. A sofa, a TV, a small bed, and a dining table. I was even more surprised to see that all the photos on the walls were ones she had taken in that house, and our wedding photo had a place of honor. I've never had anyone else, Jack, and I didn't want to forget how I left the 3 most important people in my life. Could there be something between us again, Jack? Anna leaned against me and cried on my shoulder. I didn't know what to say, my brain had shut down, but I held her tight and realized we were both crying. We stood there for a long time, slowly rocking back and forth. Our coffee had gone cold when Anna's cell phone rang. It's our daughter, Jack. I told her about my plans for today. She'll want to know your answer. Ask her if she can help you move. Anna took the call but hung up, pulling me toward her for a kiss. We could hear Jenny screaming "Mommy" into the phone. Anna held me tight, but I managed to reach the phone. Hi, Jenny, I said. Dad, should I take it as a good sign that you answered Mom's phone? I didn't interrupt you, did I? She was supposed to call me, but I couldn't wait any longer. Stop being silent, damn it. Tell me what's going on. My brother is sitting next to me. He came home for vacation. Talk to me, Dad. Mom and I were wondering if you could help us move your mother's things back to our house this weekend. Jenny's scream came from the other end of the line, almost deafening me. I can only assume it was a scream of joy. Anna said, No, Jack. Ask if they can help us now. I don't want to spend another night without you. Jenny said, We'll be there in 5 minutes. Please don't start making up sex again. I haven't stopped loving you for a second, Anna. Our kisses grew more passionate, and our hands roamed each other's bodies as the children entered. Damn it, guys, I asked you, our daughter shouted with a big smile on her face.